I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a cozy craftsman-style house filled with warmth and laughter, where the smell of my mother's homemade pecan pie lingered in the kitchen. My father, James Carter, ran Carter Construction, a family business started by my great-grandfather that built half the homes in Mecklenburg County, from charming bungalows to sprawling estates. My mother, Sarah, was his rock, smart, kind, and the heart of our family, always organizing community barbecues and keeping our home a haven. As their only child, I was Dad's shadow, trailing him to dusty job sites, learning how to read blueprints, calculate budgets, and charm clients with a firm handshake. He'd grin, his eyes crinkling, and say, "Carter Construction's yours one day, Emily. You'll make it bigger than I ever did." But when I was 10, my world shattered. Mom was diagnosed with breast cancer and passed away within a year, leaving Dad and me broken. For 3 years, it was just us, rebuilding our lives while I spent weekends at construction sites, hammering nails and dreaming of running the company. When I was 13, Dad met Diane at a Chamber of Commerce event in downtown Charlotte. She was 40, polished and charming, a real estate agent from Raleigh, with a megawatt smile and a wardrobe of tailored blazers. Diane claimed she wanted to be a mother to me, but I saw her for what she was, calculating, obsessed with status, and always angling for control. They married within a year, and Diane moved into our home, her high heels clicking on Mom's hardwood floors. Around Dad, she was the perfect wife, cooking his favorite barbecue ribs, hosting lavish client dinners with crystal glassware, and praising his work ethic. She'd hug me in front of him, calling me sweetie, and acting like a devoted stepmom. But when he wasn't around, her mask slipped. She'd snap at me to stop hanging out at job sites, saying it wasn't proper for a girl, criticizing my faded jeans, my math grades, even my southern drawl when I said y'all. She'd forget to pick me up from soccer practice, leaving me stranded at school, or exclude me from family plans, like trips to Myrtle Beach. Worse, she started sowing doubts in Dad's mind. "James, Emily's so defiant," she'd say, her voice dripping with fake concern, clutching her coffee mug at the breakfast table. "She's rude to me when you're not here. I'm worried she's not handling her mother's death well." I deny it, tears stinging my eyes, but Diane was a master manipulator. Dad, still grieving and craving stability, began to believe her, his trust in me fraying. By the time I was 16, Diane convinced him to send me to Blue Ridge Academy, a strict prep school in Asheville, 3 hours away. "Emily needs structure," she told him, flipping through glossy brochures. "A good school will prepare her for a real career, not manual labor." Dad, who'd always been proud of my love for Carter Construction, wavered, his shoulders slumped. "I just want the best for you," he said, his voice heavy. Maybe Diane's right. A degree will open doors. I begged to stay, sobbing in my room, but Diane had already enrolled me. Heartbroken, I went. Boarding school was tough, strict curfews, endless essays, and no job sites to escape to. But it taught me resilience. I learned to read people's intentions, document every slight, and think strategically, skills that would later save me. I kept in touch with Dad through weekly calls and holiday visits, but each time I came home, things had changed. Diane had redecorated our house, replacing Mom's handmade quilts and family photos with modern art and sleek furniture, erasing her memory. She convinced Dad to hire her brother, Greg, a smug accountant with a slick ponytail, as the financial manager for Carter Construction. "Greg's got a degree," she'd say, sipping wine at dinner. "He'll streamline the business." But I noticed the company's profits dipping, with fewer contracts and higher expenses, and Dad grew more stressed, his laughter fading. When I was 18, I graduated and came home, ready to join Carter Construction as promised, eager to apply what I'd learned about project management. But Diane had other plans. Emily should go to college, she told Dad, her tone firm. "Construction's no place for a young woman. She needs a degree to make something of herself." To my shock, Dad agreed, his eyes avoiding mine. "You're too smart to swing a hammer forever," he said, echoing her words. I was devastated. The business I had grown up loving, the legacy I'd been promised, was suddenly out of reach. I enrolled at UNC Charlotte, studying business management, determined to earn the credentials to take over Carter Construction. But during my college years, Diane's grip on Dad tightened. She pushed him to take out risky bank loans to expand the company, claiming it would make Carter Construction a regional powerhouse, bidding on projects in Raleigh and Greenville. She replaced loyal employees, guys who'd worked for Dad since I was a kid, with her allies, including Greg, who now controlled the finances, blocking Dad out of key decisions. When I came home for breaks, I barely recognized Dad. He'd developed heart problems, his face pale, and he was drinking bourbon more than usual, a bottle always on the counter. Diane played the concerned wife, fussing over him in public. But I noticed she was the one stocking the liquor cabinet and forgetting to remind him about his medications, leaving pill bottles unopened. The plot thickened when my cousin, Ryan, married Lauren, a friend of Diane's from her real estate circle. Lauren was charming and ambitious, just like Diane, with a knack for turning heads at client events. The two quickly became inseparable, whispering over coffee like co-conspirators. Brian worked at Carter Construction as a project manager, and Lauren inserted herself into the business, offering marketing ideas like flashy brochures and social media campaigns that cost a fortune but brought no results. They'd praise each other's plans, sidelining me whenever I tried to contribute during family dinners. "Emily, you're still in school," Lauren would say, with a patronizing smile, twirling her wine glass. "Leave the business to the grown-ups." Diane would nod and adding, "She's right, James. Emily's not ready yet." By the time I graduated at 22, Carter Construction was struggling. The loans Diane pushed for were bleeding the company dry, with interest payments eating out profits, and Greg's mismanagement was obvious: missing invoices, inflated costs, and shady subcontractor deals. I tried to talk to Dad, showing him spreadsheets I'd made, but he was too exhausted to listen, his hands shaking as he waved me off. "Diane and Greg know what they're doing," he'd say. "Trust them, Emily." When I was 26, Dad had a heart attack while on a job site. Diane didn't call me until he was already in the ICU at Carolinas Medical Center. When I rushed to Charlotte, she was there, playing the grieving wife, surrounded by her country, club friends and Lauren, all dressed in black like a staged performance. Dad passed away 3 days later, and I was shattered, barely able to breathe through the grief. The funeral was a sham, planned by Diane and Lauren, who invited their socialite friends instead of Dad's old crew or lifelong buddies from his fishing trips. Diane wore a designer black dress, accepting condolences with crocodile tears, while Lauren clung to Ryan, acting like the perfect daughter-in-law. The real betrayal came at the will reading in a sterile lawyer's office. According to the document, Dad had left Carter Construction, our family home, and all his investments, savings, stocks, and rental properties, to Diane, with a chunk of the business shares going to Ryan and Lauren. I was left with $10,000 in Mom's jewelry, a few necklaces and rings that felt like a cruel afterthought compared to the empire Dad built. "This isn't right," I said, my voice shaking, hands clenched into fists. "Dad always said the business was mine." Diane looked at me with fake pity. Her lips pursed. "Your father changed his mind, Emily. He wanted you to build your own life, not live in his shadow." I demanded to see earlier wills, but Diane's lawyer, a shady guy named Tom with a cheap suit, claimed there were none, his eyes darting nervously. I knew she was lying. Dad had mentioned updating his will when I turned 21, ensuring I'd inherit Carter Construction, his pride and joy. But without proof, I was powerless. Diane gave me 1 month to move out of the family home, her voice cold as she handed me a deadline. Lauren, now living in a McMansion in Ballantyne paid for with company profits, smirked as I packed my things into cardboard boxes. "You'll be fine, Emily," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're young. Start over." As I left, I found a letter in Mom's old jewelry box, tucked under a velvet lining, written in Dad's familiar scrawl years ago, promising Carter Construction would always be mine, a vow that brought tears to my eyes. Attached was a business card for a lawyer named Karen Davis, who'd handled his legal affairs before Diane entered our lives. I called Karen, who confirmed Dad had drafted a will when I was 21, leaving everything to me, business, house, and all. Diane had visited her office a year before his death, claiming he wanted a new lawyer and taking all his documents. Her smile, too, perfect to trust. That was when I decided to fight back. Diane and Lauren had stolen my legacy, but I wasn't done. I moved to LA, got a job at a rival construction firm, and started planning. My anger fueling every step. I hired a private investigator, Mike, a grizzled ex-cop with a knack for digging up dirt, to investigate Diane and Lauren's lives. What we found was explosive. Diane had a history of fraud, running a real estate scam with Greg in Durham, swindling clients before marrying Dad, her record buried under a changed name. Lauren had a pattern of latching onto wealthy families, marrying Ryan only after confirming his stake in Carter Construction. Her social media a curated lie of charity galas and fake smiles. Together, they'd been siphoning money from the company through fake invoices, overpriced contracts, and shell companies registered in Delaware. Mike also found evidence that Diane had been tampering with Dad's medications, mixing his heart pills with supplements that, when combined with alcohol, worsened his condition. The heart attack wasn't just bad luck. It was the result of months of subtle poisoning, confirmed by a pharmacist records Mike uncovered. I spent 4 years gathering evidence, working late nights after my day job, my apartment walls covered in notes and timelines. I recorded conversations with Greg, posing as a potential client interested in his side ventures, catching him bragging about skimming profits. I obtained financial records through a whistleblower at the company, showing how Diane and Lauren funneled millions into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. I tracked down former employees, guys like Mike the foreman, who'd been forced out after questioning Greg's math, who confirmed Diane had replaced them with her allies to cover her tracks. I even shadowed Lauren at a networking event, catching her slipping a company check into her purse, a small but damning piece of evidence. With a mountain of evidence, bank statements, emails, and witness accounts, I contacted the FBI, presenting proof of fraud, money laundering, and potential manslaughter in a 3-hour meeting that left the agents stunned. They opened a case, and I watched it gain traction, but I wanted more than legal justice. I wanted Diane and Lauren to feel the betrayal they'd inflicted on me. I reached out to Dad's old clients and subcontractors, sharing evidence of the fraud over coffee at local diners, watching their faces harden with anger. Many, like the owner of a lumber supply company Dad trusted, agreed to testify, furious at being overcharged. I also contacted Ryan, who'd been manipulated by Lauren's charm. When I showed him the evidence, bank transfers, forged signatures, and toxicology reports, he was horrified, his face pale as he realized his wife's betrayal. He agreed to cooperate with the FBI, turning over emails Lauren thought she'd deleted. The final blow came when I found Dad's original will in a hidden safe in the family home, accessed during a legal inspection I fought for through the courts. It confirmed he'd left everything to me: Carter Construction, the house, his savings, everything. Diane's forged will, dated just 6 months before his death, was exposed as a fraud, its signatures mismatched and notary seal fake. The FBI arrested Diane, Lauren, and Greg on charges of fraud, money laundering, and manslaughter in a dawn raid that made local news. The trial was a media frenzy, with headlines screaming about the Construction King's killer widow across North Carolina papers. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, witness testimonies from former employees, and medical reports showing traces of toxic supplements in Dad's system. Diane's polished facade crumbled in court. She screamed at me, calling me a spoiled, ungrateful brat who'd ruined her life, her perfectly styled hair falling loose as she lunged forward, restrained by bailiffs. Lauren tried to play the victim, claiming she was just following Diane's lead, her tears unconvincing to the jury. The judge wasn't fooled, delivering a scathing rebuke. Diane was sentenced to life in prison for manslaughter and fraud. Her real estate license revoked forever. Lauren got 8 years for her role in the financial crimes, her socialite image shattered. Greg was sentenced to 12 years for money laundering, his smug grin gone, all the assets they'd stolen. Carter Construction, the family home, the offshore accounts, and even the McMansion were returned to me, along with a $2 million settlement for emotional damages, enough to rebuild and more. Today, Carter Construction is thriving under my leadership, with new contracts for eco-friendly homes and commercial projects across the Carolinas. I've expanded into green building, installing solar panels and sustainable materials, honoring Dad's love for innovation. I moved back into our family home, restoring Mom's quilts and photos, making it a haven again. I started a foundation in Mom's name to support women in construction, offering scholarships and mentorship to young women in trade schools. Ryan, now divorced from Lauren, works with me as a project manager, and we've rebuilt our bond, sharing stories of Dad over beers after work. Diane writes me letters from prison, begging for forgiveness, claiming she was a loving mother who made mistakes, her handwriting shaky on cheap paper. I don't respond. She had years to be family but chose greed instead. She and Lauren thought they could erase me, but they underestimated me, shaped by boarding school discipline and Dad's lessons in grit. Revenge wasn't just about getting my inheritance back. It was about justice for Dad, Mom's memory, and everyone they hurt with their schemes. Dad taught me that family is about loyalty and love, not greed, a lesson Diane and Lauren learned the hard way in a courtroom. As I walk through job sites, watching houses rise from the ground, the hum of saws and hammers a familiar comfort, I know I've honored his promise. Carter Construction is stronger than ever, employing dozens and building communities, and the legacy Diane tried to steal will live on for generations, a testament to the daughter who fought back.